Xaar revolutionised the printing of ceramic tiles. In 2007, with the Xaar 1001, its unique hybrid side shooter architecture and TF technology delivered unrivaled reliability to this market. This meant that the production uptime was maximised. The other thing it allowed us to do was work with a very wide range of ceramic inks. Ceramic inks are very highly pigmented and they're very viscous. Other printhead architectures struggled with those inks to get the uptime, to keep the printing running. We also delivered grayscale to the digital printing of ceramics, and the reason that was important is it increased the creativity of the designs that could be made. Creativity basically leads to more beautiful tiles which can be sold for a higher value. So with the unrivaled reliability and the increased creativity, it revolutionised the digital ceramics market. And Xaar is the only independent supplier of printheads to the marketplace. This is important because we focus on our OEMs and we focus on the markets to deliver what that market needs. We provide more than just the printheads. We provide system components, electronics and software to speed the time to market of our OEMs. And we spend a lot of time working very closely with our ink partners and fluid partners, not just inks, to make sure their performance within the printhead is optimised as much as possible. Have a look at some of our other videos on ceramics and they'll go into these in much more detail. Traditionally, there are two methods of producing ceramic tiles. The first is we call it technical porcelain. These are the type of tiles you use in a shopping mall or in a hotel. They're very, very hard wearing. And these are made by putting fritz, which is crushed glass, onto the top of the tiles and then firing them. The patterns were quite limited, but they were hard wearing. That was the most important thing. The second method of producing ceramic tiles is actually using screen printing, and the screen printing can be flat or it can be on a roller. Now, screen printing has some specific disadvantages. The first disadvantage is what you have to do is press the pattern onto the tiles, press the colour onto the tiles, and then they fire them. Now, when the tile is not fired, it's very soft and very crumbly, and that pressing often broke the tiles and led therefore to high waste, which increases the final cost of the tiles you sell. The other problem with screen printing is that you don't print to the edge of the tile, so it left a little white rim around the edge, which wasn't very attractive. And finally, the size of the pattern you can print. It's limited by the size of the screen or by the size of the roller, as you can see on the video. It's not very creative, the patterns aren't very creative that we get. Another issue with the traditional method of printing is the length of time it took and the waste it caused when you're setting up a new pattern. The way they do it is they wait till the end of the production day, till all the money has been made, and then they will do the test patterns for the next day. To do a test pattern, they have to completely wash down the machine, put the new rollers on, start again, print a few test tiles and fire them. Firing a tile takes about an hour, so they'd have to wait, see what the tiles look like, then decide whether they needed to change anything. If they need to change it, they'd have to start again, and they go through this hour-long process minimum to get the tiles. So it took them many hours to set up a new pattern, which means that what they did was then they used to produce many, many tiles of exactly the same pattern, leading to lots of stock. You can often see it if you ever go around a ceramics factory, you can see a great deal of finished good stock. And again, that's tied up capital for them. So in summary, the way they traditionally printed tiles wasn't very creative, didn't give them very nice patterns, had a lot of stock and a lot of waste. Well, there are many, many advantages of digital, and I hope we'll cover just a few now. Now, the first one, as I mentioned in the previous video, was contact was a problem with traditional tiles. With digital, nothing's touching it. There are no breakages. The drop's fired from a distance of 3 to 5 millimeters away from the tile itself. The other thing you can do with the digital, you can print right to the edge of the tile, right at the edge, there's no white line, so it makes the tile look more lifelike, it makes the marbles look more like marbles and the stones more like stones. Then interestingly, you can also print on tiles now that aren't flat. So for example, for a stone tile, a slate tile, which is very popular now in the UK, you can actually have a texture on the top of the tile that gives it an even more lifelike look, and then digitally print on top of it. So the creativity of the tiles just exploded. If the creativity is better and the tile looks more lifelike, you can actually sell that tile for a higher price, which was very, very attractive to the market. Another important thing when you're using a computer to print a tile rather than a roller is that the minimum run length of your design is one tile, a single tile. This was so important to the end users. It meant that when they wanted to set up the design for the next day, they could just stop production for a few minutes, run 15 tiles with different colours and even different patterns with the same inks, go off and fire them while they continued the production for the day. There wasn't this long lag of time and this waste of materials to actually get the new pattern set up for the next day. That gave them a lot more uptime in their production. The other thing is the computer is now the one that's actually controlling the colour of the tile as well. So the reproductivity of a design was much better. They could reproduce the design time and time again, and that helped them reduce the amount of stock they had. It helped them to reduce the amount of tiles waiting to be fired. Therefore, their working capital was reduced significantly. And finally, the computer now determines how big the pattern length is. It's no longer determined by a roll or by a screen. It's determined by the computer. So it depends how much memory you've got on the computer. But you can print a tile or a design even to fill a room without a single pattern repeat. So the trials of digital printing started in about 1999, but they didn't really take off. And in the next video, we'll have a look at why they didn't take off. So let's have a look at what was wrong with some of those early machines first. Often they needed a lot of maintenance, so that meant they could run for a short period of time, then they had to stop and they had to reprime the print head, get it going again, and then they'd start again. So the downtime in production was quite high. The second issue with the early digital printers is often the quality of the print was pretty low. The throw distance was quite high. It's like 3 to 5 millimeters that the drop has to travel between the print head and the tile. Most of the original applications, or the applications that digital printing comes from, actually throw it only at a millimeter. And you can imagine that the accuracy of landing of that drop is determined, or it gets worse the further away you get. The other thing they had was that it was binary. So the images, when you looked at them after they were fired, looked quite grainy. In 2007, Xaar released the Xaar 1001, which was a real revolution to the digital printing of ceramics. And it really kick-started this massive growth in this marketplace. It has a unique architecture where the ink is jetted perpendicular to the flow of the ink in the print head. The ink is continuously recirculated with our TF technology, and that's extremely important. By keeping the ink moving past the back of the nozzle at the highest flow rates in the industry while we're actually printing the drop enables much higher reliability than any of the traditional drop-on-demand print heads that are in the marketplace. The other thing that happens sometimes with digital printing is air can be taken into the print head. In traditional types of print heads, that air again would block the nozzle, meaning you have to stop, meaning you have to reprime. With our TF technology, we can keep that bubble away from the nozzle. We can sweep it away, and that allows the printing to continue. That's so important. That meant that the production uptime was suddenly increased, that the replacement of the print heads was less frequent, and all that obviously is a benefit in the cost. The other thing that Xaar brought was grayscale printing to the ceramic industry. That helps on the image quality. It means that the image that you see is much more lifelike. In 2012, we released a new version of the Xaar print head, which allowed bigger drops to be fired out. At the time, woods and slates were very popular in the tile market, and this allowed you to get a deeper brown or a darker grey. And lately, in 2014, we've just released the Xaar 1002, which has redefined the image quality standard in digital ceramic printing. And we won't stop there. We're continuing to work with our OEMs and our ink partners to ensure that we deliver new products to market watch this space. When you think about what a ceramic printer is, it's more than just a print head. It's a combination of Xaar's print heads, the mechanical design of the printer, and the inks that run in those printers. We provide the print heads, but we also provide system components, electronics and software, which enable our OEMs to interface very simply to the print head. We leave customization of the man-machine interface up to them, but we make all the difficult bits work together inside. We also work very closely with ink suppliers. That's because to optimize the ink performance, we need to understand how it operates, and we spend time in our labs developing waveforms that are customized for every single ink. That customization, as you can see on the video, can change the way that the drops are formed significantly. Because what we want is a very clean drop coming out of the print head that doesn't develop all these little satellite drops that potentially can end up as mist or spray on your tile. Xaar is the only print head manufacturer that works in this way with our OEMs and with our ink partners.